You ready?
Yes,
Let's do this. Welcome to the WWIU show with Scott and Michi. I am Scott.
I am Michi. The message is clear: anti-racism, anti-capitalism, anti-imperialism in order to dismantle the colonized mindset. The Which Way is Up show offers us an opportunity to participate in the public conversation while being critical about social concerns in an effort to become more engaged citizens.
Amazing. Applause, applause, applause. I haven't heard that in a
Definitely.
minute. It's been a
Uh,
minute.
it's
It's
been more
been,
than a minute.
yeah, it's been a few minutes
We
actually.
recorded our last show in March, I believe,
Yeah, I think it was toward the end of March.
for Women's History. It was like the whole gender roles
No,
conversation.
no, we did one after that when I went on the rant about the worker exploitation thing.
Yes.
So we
Okay,
had,
so
yeah,
April.
yeah. So
April.
in April, I think it was towards the end of April. And
Mm-hmm.
so we got some catching up to do, which is
Yes, we
probably we're going
do.
to spend probably the top half of the show, or maybe most of the show. It depends on how it flows.
Let's catch up.
Just catching up, as far as just you and I, not necessarily with any listeners, but you and I need to catch up a little bit about what's been going on. Um, I just wanted to say welcome to fascist USA. I just want to get that out there, just in case anybody's being a little naive about the current state that we're in or that we're headed to, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. Um, so catching up. So I'm just gonna start real quick with since the last time you and I recorded, I've gotten some feedback um,
Okay.
from a few people. So and mainly it was from some new listeners, friends of mine, but new listeners, and
Hmm.
it was mainly about you. And yeah, yeah, and
Ah,
I'm digging it. So one person said, and this was referring to the gender role show, that
okay.
they really appreciated you sharing and getting a little personal. They
Okay.
they said that. Then I had another friend. She said that she really appreciated your voice as a Puerto Rican woman,
Hmm.
and she loved it. And I believe that day, she listened. She caught a piece of the gender role show in the video clip that we posted,
Hmm.
and then she asked me how can she listen to the full show, and then I wound up putting her onto the Spotify, and she pretty much listened to a couple of shows. So
Awesome.
then I had dinner with my aunt one time. My aunt, who's a listener of the show.
Yes,
Yes.
Auntie.
My auntie. And like when she says, she'll comment like on Facebook and she'll be
Yes.
like, I listen to the show, love the show, we need to talk. And I get paranoid and I'm like,
Yeah,
oh
yeah,
shit.
yeah.
So we talked and she was like, first of all, I love the podcast. Like like loved it. And at that point, she only heard up to the gender role show, and then we had already put out the worker exploitation one. So she was gonna go back and listen to that. But it was interesting because in the gender role show, I shared about the night when I was 8 years old when my parents told me that they were separating and my father left. And it was really
Yes.
interesting because my aunt heard that, and she, mm, you know, it was something that we never spoke about. So like
Right.
she didn't really know what that experience was like for me. I mean, she can assume at 8 years old, but she didn't really, she never heard it from me.
Right.
And then so our dinner and our conversation over dinner was what that night and what that week after that and months and after that, what that was like for each of us. And
Right.
we kind of found out some stuff that we didn't know necessarily. So that was really, really interesting because we're talking about something that happened 40 years ago. You know what
Right.
I'm saying? Yeah, yeah, pretty much 40 years ago. So
Right.
it was really interesting, and it was a moment that I really appreciated because I was able to connect with my aunt more because we were
Yes.
kind of close. I was kind of like she was kind of like the big sis when I was younger, and I spent a lot of time at my grandmother's house. She used to take me everywhere with her, or I used to
Okay.
follow her everywhere, and she used to take me
Okay.
where. So we were really really close at one point. So that was really interesting. So um,
Wow.
yeah.
I wonder how much Auntie got out of just the sharing with you and you two discovering what that life event was for you. Um, her role as a woman in your family around that situation, so because it sounds like just in what you're saying that she was a caregiver, the way many women are from a very young age in family environments, and so in her hearing the story, how much of her own story surrounding her gender role in her family, in her society, kind of came up for her in learning what your experience was, and
It's
so
interesting.
yeah.
It's interesting that you say that, because now that I realize it, at that point, once my parents separated and my dad left, I was pretty much left in the care of all women in the family,
Mhm.
between, mom, aunts,
Yeah.
grandmothers, so, that was interesting. So yeah, I just wanted to, share the feedback with you. I could have shared it at any time, but I was like, let me just wait till the next show, because, it's a good time to talk about it, so.
Thanks. That's awesome to know that my sharing is landing with people, because
Yes.
I'm sure it's the same for you. We have received a lot of feedback, and specifically surrounding the topics that we cover, which you and I both come up with, but you're definitely the more vocal between the two of us from a political perspective, so
I'll be
yeah.
talking shit.
Nah, listen, somebody's got to do it.
So what's going on with you? What do you want me to know? What do you
Since
want the
we
listeners?
last recorded, I was actually on the tail end of a year-long apprenticeship in bomba dance,
Right, right.
and I was preparing basically since the beginning of the new year for my final project, which was on June 5th, at our annual student recital. Um, and so that was basically the last 2 months before the show. And so I had a lot of, just intense practice happening for myself. And I was really throwing myself into that. And, bomba for me is how I express so many things, who I
Hmm.
am individually, the how grounded and rooted I am in my culture. It is part of my resistance work to be involved in this genre.
Before you go any further, for
Go
people that
ahead.
may not know, can you explain what bomba is?
So bomba is the Afro Puerto Rican drum and dance music. And it goes back over 400 years. Naturally, it was brought over from Africa with the enslaved, and it still is practiced as a genre of music, cultural music in Puerto Rico. It is closely aligned with resistance because it was part of religious practices that were banned,
Mm.
as the enslaved were forced to convert to Christianity, Catholicism to be specific. And then eventually it also became a way for them to organize in their resistance. Um, it was a way for them to communicate so they could organize to, so it was used for so many different things. And then of course, as there was blending of like the indigenous people of the islands and the enslaved, then it just became like part of our culture, our heritage,
Right.
as our music. That is the music of Puerto Rico, is bomba. So I sing, I dance, I play, and I'm a constant student on that journey.
You're a busy woman.
I am, and then I have a new relationship, and so
Ooh,
that comes.
I gotta find a sound effect for that. We're gonna find a sound effect. Something like
Oh,
ooh.
see, we would do different things because you do ooh, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But then with that comes a whole new set of just ways for me to move as a very independent woman who has spent the majority of my time alone. It takes something for me to be able to fit somebody else into my life. I work, I have gigs, I have events that
I
I
mean, it's hard for
attend,
me. It's
I
hard for
have
you.
this.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, it takes a lot of communication, which is something that you need anyway in a relationship. If you
Has
don't have
has
that,
has he given you any feedback on the show? Has he listened to the show?
he has listened. and he likes the show. Um, he is of the same mindset as,
Well, I
the
hope so,
topics
because
that
he
we
would
cover
he would have
on
to
the
go.
show.
He would have to go.
He would not have survived if
Yeah,
he was an
he wouldn't have
opponent of
survived the screening
any.
process
He wouldn't
because we
have
got screening
even made it
processes. Yeah, yeah.
to the consideration phase.
The initial
Like,
screening, he would have
I would
failed.
not have even accepted the 500-word essay unless I
Yeah,
knew.
yeah.
So yeah, so there's that. And then trying to fit into all that self-care, there was also a promotion at work.
Congratulations, applause, applause.
Thank you. There was a promotion at work. And while in the past, I stepped away from management roles because of how it impacted my ability to balance and put self care into my life. I now am working with a therapist. With insurance changes comes changes of providers,
Hmm.
because that's just how the healthcare industry slash business is set up in this country, because that's what it is. And so, but luckily, I'm working with a new provider, and she and I have a really good thing going. And I am really of the mindset that this time around, I am a different person. I am in a different mindset, and I have a different set of tools, if you will, so that I can take on a management position again and rock it.
That's going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to your experiences in this new
Okay.
management
I
phase.
will let you know. Yeah.
So, since we've last recorded, I've when I had a medical procedure, a little surgery, first time ever having a surgery. Um, I think it's a good thing to mention that I am the ultimate procrastinator. You already know this, but so it turned out that, matter of fact, let me go back. I had two procedures in one, and I just want to let you know how that came about. So I had a hernia
Mhm.
that I've had for at least 15 years. At least 15 years. Now, when you hear hernia, you think that anybody that knows about a hernia, you think of an enlarged hernia with pain and whatever, and it wasn't like that. Like, it was something that you were able to see in the navel area. And once someone really pointed out to me that I had a hernia, when they saw it, um, I could never not see it again. And then I've watched it grow over the years. So naturally, that's something that comes up when I meet with my primary care provider. And I'm the wrong person to tell this to, especially coming from a doctor. Like, it's like, he every year, every other year, whatever, he would like press into it and he says, "Does that hurt?" And I'm like, "No, I don't feel anything." And he'd be like, "So what do you want to do? You don't want to do nothing about that right now, right?" And I'm like, "No, I don't. I guess I don't." So I put it off for a long time, right? So right before COVID, I got this bump on my right shoulder, like where the neck and the shoulder meets, right? A little bump, felt like felt like I got like a pimple, but
Mhm.
I couldn't bust it, right? So it turns out that was a cyst, right? And of course, I did nothing, right?
Mhm.
And plus, it was during COVID hit. Like, I wasn't,
Right.
So it didn't hurt. It wasn't big. So it just wasn't there in my mind. Especially like it was something that I can't see in the mirror anyway. Whether I have a shirt on or off. So a couple months ago, over one weekend, the cyst decides to grow, enlarge.
Mm.
And I tell you, the pain shot up my neck into my skull, right? Into my skull. And I mean, it was horrible. I had to actually go to an urgent care clinic.
Mhm.
Um, so I go to the urgent care clinic, and they drain it, take care of it. But they told me that this is just temporary because eventually it's going to grow back. So you can have,
Mhm.
we're going to refer you to the surgeon. So I go to the surgeon, a few days after that, and I could have just pretty much took my shirt and showed him. But I for some reason I took my shirt off. So when I took my shirt off, he sees the hernia. right? Which I
Mm-hmm.
had no plan on even talking about with him, right?
Right.
But he sees the hernia. He lets me know that he sees the hernia,
Mm-hmm.
right? And he says something that sounds so reasonable to me. He's like, I could take care of both of those things at once. And I'm like, like that just pretty much eliminates any procrastination at that point. Cause I'm like,
Absolutely.
I can take care of both. It makes no sense to go take care of the cyst and then leave the hernia and then wait till I'm in pain. But it got to a point where it was enlarged. It was like I was gonna be in pain sooner or later. I
Right.
could feel it. I could feel the pressure against my navel, against my stomach. So I go to do the surgery. So I wanted to get a little naked, if I may,
Mm-hmm.
about the surgery process. I've shared with the listeners, and you already know that I am an addict in recovery.
Right.
And part of our responsibility of being a recovering addict is when we go get new primary care physicians, new doctors, or anything new surgeons or whatever. You always have forms you fill out, applications, and asking you about your history. And it's important that we tell them about our history,
Yes.
especially someone like me that has a history of opioid dependence, right?
Right.
It's important to know. The doctors really appreciate knowing, especially when we're in this time where there's so much focus on pain medication and the way it's prescribed and if it
Yep.
should be prescribed or whatever. So, and we do that because the doctors know not to prescribe us opioid medication. Like there are
Exactly.
there are alternatives to opioids. May not be as good, but they work. They
Yes.
work. So naturally, I shared about that when I went for the surgery. I kind of like there were stages where like I met with the person, of course, for the billing. That's first. We get the billing out the way, and then I had like a nurse that gave me the gown and everything and kind of got me to the bed and made me feel comfortable, whatever. Then I had a couple more nurses that were part of the surgical team that kind of let me know what to expect or whatever. And then there was the anesthesiologist that came in, a whole bunch of people. So I told, make sure that each of them knew, and they had it on each form. They read it over, and and I let them know. So I go. It's time to go into the surgery, and of course, they put me on that. I'm out. And when I come to, I'm in pain. I can feel it. Like I'm still like half knocked out, but I'm to the point where I can hear my surroundings. I can hear the nurses or whatever, and then I can feel the pain. Automatically reminded me like where I am, what just happened, and I start to moan. It
Mm-hmm.
hurts. So I think after probably about 15 or 20 minutes, the nurses come over and they were like, "Are you in pain?" And I was like, "Yes." And they asked me to on a scale of 1 to 10, and then I was like maybe about a 7.
Mm-hmm.
And in my mind, I'm like, should I just not tell them I'm in pain because I'm afraid they're gonna give me something that. And then the reality was, you're in pain. You know what I'm saying? Like you're in pain, and you're in a hospital. You're under medical care. Be honest about it. So I did,
Right.
and they gave me a shot of something called Dilaudid,
Mm-hmm.
which is a very, very strong opioid. It's hardly ever, it's used in those type of situations in the hospital. It's not something that they prescribe you to take home or whatever.
Right.
And the feeling I got, like automatic, the pain was automatically not gone, but to the point where I was in pain to the point where it was reduced to some soreness
Got it.
immediately. And this is an opioid. I haven't
Right.
had any opioids in my body for 20 years plus, almost
Mm-hmm.
21 years. So it hit me hard. It hit me hard. And you know, there's a joke, like we people in recovery, like we moments like this, we refer to it as a free lapse as opposed to a relapse,
Right.
where it's like we didn't make the decision to go out and use, but we're getting that feeling anyway, and it's medically prescribed and blah blah blah. So it's just some mental gymnastics that we play
Right.
in our mind. And so they came, checked on me. I don't know how long it was after this, but they came and checked on me, and they were like, "How you feeling now?" And I'm like, "I'm good now." I was
Mm-hmm.
like, "Matter of fact, it'd even be great if you could turn down these lights a little bit and get me a cigarette." Yeah. Anybody that knows, like I also quit smoking like 10 years and 11
Yeah.
months ago, right?
You were
But
gonna ride the wave of that
yeah,
relapse as far
because I was
as
joking about the cigarette. I
I
wasn't joking
know.
about the lights. I wanted the mood, right? I
Right,
wanted to chill because I wasn't ready to leave the hospital yet. You know what I'm
right.
saying? So I wanted to chill. And so, and then after a while, the initial effects of the anesthesia, it wore off,
Hmm.
and then I could just feel the pain meds, and then I could still feel the soreness, and then obviously after a while it starts to wear off a little bit, and I feel a little more soreness, and then the pain comes back. Anyway, so I'm sharing this to say that in a situation like that, like I've seen a lot of my predecessors in recovery go back out using after
Hmm.
pain medication situation. So I'm
Right.
sharing this. I want to share this to people that are in recovery, people that are in early recovery, or people that are not even thinking about recovery, but you might find yourself one day in recovery because that's how it often works. And the importance of being honest with the doctors, and not only that, but being honest what I just shared with you, right?
Yes.
Because I could have not shared, and I shared that with a few people that's close to me. You know what I'm saying? I think I might even posted it on online or something. Shared about it,
Hmm.
and I was sharing about it jokingly, but I was sharing at the same time to tell on myself, like, this is the situation that
Hmm.
happened, and I went through a medical procedure, and I was in pain, but then I also felt good when they gave me that medication. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? I wanted to keep that up front. The good thing is my meds that was prescribed to me for my recovery from the surgery was, ibuprofen and muscle relaxation. So I didn't
Hmm.
have any opioids, and there wasn't, I didn't get caught up in trying to trick myself that I may need something stronger when the muscle
Right.
relaxers and the ibuprofen was working just fine. Because
Right.
that's the mental component of addiction. Here I am over 20 years, over 2 decades clean,
Hmm.
and a situation like that could just get my mind to start trying to play tricks, and so I wanted to share that and get a little honest about that experience. And so the pain, the not the pain meds, but the muscle relaxers and ibuprofen was fine.
Good.
um the first week was the most, like the first day or two was the pain, and then after that it was mostly soreness.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how many activities involve the use of our abdomen muscles and our stomach muscles. Something as simple as getting out of bed and turning and putting your feet on the floor.
Oh
It
yeah.
was like I got to grab onto the headboard and kind of, so it took some getting used to. And after 4 or 5 weeks or so, like I'm good. And this was just the 6th week. So I'm not, I would say I'm fully back, and
Hmm.
to the point where I joined the gym now, because this whole experience also caused me to reflect on my health now, my age, be responsible, to walk the walk, because I'm always telling people about the importance of the primary care and the yearly checkups or whatever. And so now I
Right.
had to check myself and realize, this was nothing major, but it's just a good wake up call to, start focusing more on the health, whether it be the physical health, the mental health, or the spiritual health. And thanks for letting me share that.
Absolutely. And thank you for sharing. I totally got the point of your sharing because it's an accountability thing too, you know.
Absolutely.
The more people that know, the more people you have supporting you to continue on the 20-year journey that you've been on and have been doing successfully. So, and that's something that I always express I'm very proud of you for. When you were talking about struggling to get out of bed and stuff, and since we're talking about self-care, really,
Yes.
um, uh, yoga is amazing for that reason. That's one of the reasons, is because you learn how to move in ways where you can um, take the pressure off of. So, for example, getting out of bed, they tell you like roll over to one side and then push yourself up with your arms so that
Yeah.
you know. So,
Yeah.
those are things that when you take yoga, you kind of become aware of those different types of ways to move, because when you're injured or just less agile, just with age, that's going to happen, right? So, we can kind of learn these things now. Speaking of yoga, I have not, I want to say 8 years ago. I started doing yoga, and I was doing it hardcore for like 3 or 4 years. Um, and so like in the last 4 years, it's kind of been like here and there, I'll do stretching or whatnot. But definitely since COVID started, I have not been as focused in getting that stretching and that practice in. Um, I mean, for so many reasons, right? Like we were just totally thrown off course, and we had to
Yeah.
recreate what our lives were and meant and whatnot. Um, as some people may know, I know you know, maybe not everybody knows, but about the time that COVID began, my niece moved in with me.
Hmm.
And so I reconfigured my apartment from a 1 bedroom, living room, dining room to a 2 bedroom with a dining room. I was living the dorm life for like 2 years, you
We
know.
we were recording in the dorm,
Yes,
right?
it was the Chilltown bunker.
Hmm. That's right.
And so having to consolidate my space also contributed to I'm not saying that was the sole reason. I was just procrastinating like you. But as I was so she moved out in June. She had
Applause,
plans.
applause,
Yes, definitely,
applause for your
because
niece. Applause for you.
yes, because at the beginning of 2020, she had just gotten her degree. She had traveled and spent a couple months in Spain, and she came back with a plan. And the plan was get a job, move in with my friends, and start grad school. And so, just like I said, COVID came and just derailed everything. So she moved in with me instead. The job got postponed. She did start grad school. So, eventually the job came along. And so this was just the next step. And I'm very proud of her for not allowing the pandemic to derail her plans. They just happened different than what was planned. And I'm proud of her for that, because a lot of times that happens to us, that we have a plan, things don't go according to the plan. And so we trash the whole plan. And, sometimes all we have to do is look at it from a different perspective, or just go with the flow and understand that maybe our plan isn't going
Right.
as planned because it's not a good plan. God has a better plan. So we got to go with the flow of that. But anyway, as I was reconfiguring my space, now that she's moved out and she's on her own, and I'm like, okay, let me put things where they go. First of all, I have a lot more space now than I did before, because I purged a lot during the pandemic. I got rid of so much stuff that I didn't need, that I had not wanted to let go of. And so I found that, wow, I have a lot more space than I used to. And in talking to my partner yesterday, I was like, I think I'm gonna, because he was like, well, what is it that has you not doing the yoga? Um, and I told him, I was like, in the past, I did it more regularly, because literally my mat was like out. It was a permanent fixture on the floor, ready to go, so that I didn't have to go through the whole process of setup and whatnot. And so I was like, you know what, that's what it was. And so when we're done here and I, sweep and mop and do whatever, my mat's gonna go out and it's gonna be ready.
Oh
And
shit.
yeah, and so tomorrow, and this is all part of the, because I know that in taking on this new position at work, I'm going to need a release. I'm going to need that space that's just my sanctuary, my tranquility, and I have a lot of that. I have my music, I have, the people that surround me that know and love me, but just that meditation time, that time to physically release. Because that's another thing, is that there are a lot of things that we go through that have mental and emotional impact on us, and we feel like those are the only ways to cure and heal those things. But a lot of times taking that release onto another level may actually be what works. Some people do jogging, some people go to the gym, some people,
Yeah.
so yeah, so I'm excited about that too, introducing some yoga, and maybe I can plant a seed for you to take on yoga, and maybe help you learn to move in different ways, like other ways to get out of bed. So
Yeah, I mean that whole experience definitely has me open to it because I want at the time when because I spent probably the first couple days pretty much in bed, like from
Mhm.
the bed to the bathroom and back. I wasn't doing too much, so I really started to think about the benefits of stretching, especially
Yes.
at
Yes.
this pushing the big fifth floor coming up. So Um,
You're gonna get there before I do. So
yeah, but not you'll be right behind me though. I'll hold my hand out and wait for you. You coming with me.
take
Um,
notes.
but and just the way my body feels, it's like, I know that I would really benefit from getting in some good stretches regularly,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and there's nothing, I'm not ashamed about that at all,
Yeah.
because another thing I've been doing is I've been online, and there's certain people I follow. Um, so I'm not really into the fitness gurus. They're a little
Mm-hmm.
bit too much, but basically some regular people around in the same age group that are either just began to or have been for a while taking their health and their fitness more seriously. Method Man
Mm-hmm.
from Wu-Tang Clan is one of them.
Okay.
He he's just in awesome shape right now. Follow him on Instagram. He's even got his own method. I think it's Takal Fitness or something. He has a separate page. And I was listening to an interview with him a while back, and he was pretty much saying that he was suffering from insomnia,
Mm.
and he just started getting up and going to the gym at like 4 in the morning or whatever. So I don't suffer from insomnia, but I'm an early bird. Sometimes I get up a little earlier than I would really like to.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, you know what? I can get up and get an hour in, and then start my day instead of just laying in bed for another extra hour scrolling, and
Yes.
doing nothing,
Yes, and
and
that's exactly where I'm at with the yoga. It's like I'm already up early. And again, my partner called me out on it. He was like, "What do you do for an hour?" And part of it is that that's my time to just, I sit in silence. But like you, I'm like, I'm sipping the coffee and I'm scrolling or I'm reading, and it's like, no, get your booty on the mat.
yeah,
So yeah, I get it.
for sure.
So self-care, I know that, I mean, that's what we've been talking about right now as we've been catching up.
Yeah, yeah,
And I think it's perfect that we are discussing this, our own journeys of self-care, because especially with the pandemic, I think that a lot of people have become more aware of what it takes, what it means for self-care. But if
yeah.
you haven't, it's not only going to the doctor and, doing all that stuff.
And
But
not
it's
not only manis and petties either. It's a little more than that, right?
exactly, yes, yes.
And
Self-care is
haircuts
also
for men.
right.
Because men, we
Yeah.
get in the barbershop and we come out and we feel like a new
Oh,
man, or
self-care. No,
at
no
least I
doubt.
used to when I used to go to the barbershop. I don't do that anymore. But we could get caught up coming out with that feeling of a fresh cut or fresh
Absolutely.
mani and petty, and think that we're starting new, and it's like, all right, that's just a moment. It's just
Self-care takes so many forms, whatever it is that it takes for you to feel good about yourself. Sometimes that could just be, um, I really miss my family.
mm,
Let me have them over for dinner. Order some food, invite them over, immerse yourself in what that energy is. Or, especially people that are on the front lines of, activism.
oh
It's a
yeah,
hot topic for that community because they're giving so much of themselves. They're organizing, and activism may not necessarily be something they get paid to do, and even if they do, it's still very
yeah.
taxing, not only on the
Most
body,
times
the
they don't.
mind.
Most times
Right,
they don't. Yeah,
right. These are people that are just, they have their Monday through Friday 9 to 5, and then on top of that they dedicate themselves to what they do. So self-care is absolutely important, part of why oppression works is because they wear you down. They
hmm
wear you down until you can't anymore. They wear down the leaders, they wear down the community, and that's why it works. And so we have to take care of ourselves and each other. And that's all I'll say.
Absolutely. And just to go a little bit deeper, like I started talking about my all around overall health. And so I also got to the point where I was like, okay, it's time to get back into therapy.
Mm,
Um, and it's not where it's something where it's an emergency.
mhm.
But I've been in therapy before. I've been in
Yes.
counseling. I naturally, been in treatment for, for drug use or whatever. And it goes a little deeper. It's just not about, people telling you don't use drugs. It goes deeper. And it got to a point for some, maybe 5, 6 years into my recovery, to the point where I had a lot of situations happen to me, a lot of death in the family. I lost my mom. I was, as far as my personal life, I was in just the whole toxic situation, all type of craziness. And I found myself depressed, and I know the signs of it.
Mhm.
So I went to therapy, and for I think it was about 6 months, whatever. And then I made a promise to myself that I will return um when the time, when it's needed, and not wait until everything piles up until I find myself in the fetal position in bed and can't get out of bed, because that's how I
Mhm.
was at that point when I went to
Mhm.
therapy at that time. So I started to look for a therapist, and then I kind of hit some obstacles because I was like, should I look in the immediate area of the home that's more convenient, because I'm back in the office. We're doing this little hybrid thing right now.
Mhm.
Or do I get something near the office, with the expectation that I would probably
Right.
go back to work, in the office full time, 5 days a week. And it would be easier just to have something around the office or whatever. But I started looking at home. I was like, I could start at home right now, and what I was finding out is that most of the places that I checked anyway, that uh that provide therapy. But here's another thing, and I think I shared this with you, but while looking for a therapist, it was important to find a therapist that is more aligned with my beliefs and my values, and those of you that don't know that, like, you just don't have to go out and just choose any therapist or
Yes.
just anyone that's in your network of your insurance. Like, you can really look people up. There's even websites that are more, so in other words, I was looking for a therapist that's more progressive, that would once I get start getting naked,
Yes.
they understand me and they won't make a judgment or a diagnosis on me
Right.
according to, because they get it. So I tried a few people out, and unfortunately a lot of people are doing telehealth still, and
Mhm.
that's going to be I mean, the telehealth thing was around before COVID, and it's definitely expanded, and it's big now. So it's not going anywhere. But they weren't offering any in-person sessions. And as much as I like working from home and everything, it's something about the therapy experience I wanted to do in person.
I was actually very surprised when you told me that,
Right.
because we had an exchange about it. And I was like, you of all people, I expect to be the one who's like, aren't there any telehealth providers? But I get it. I get it because we have been inundated. Our entire lives have been this for 2 years.
Yeah.
And when you are in a relationship, a therapeutic relationship, right? It it makes a difference to be able to connect on another level because that's what you're doing. So
I mean, not only that, but and people may have the wrong idea about me. Like, anybody that knows me knows that I do not talk on the phone. Right? Don't ever call me unless it is emergency. Like, when I hear my phone ring, because everybody knows, so like, people don't call me. But whenever I hear my phone ring, it has my immediate attention because I think it's an emergency call.
right.
Especially if I look at that call ID and I see my kid's name or the
Yes.
kid's mom's name, whatever, you know. And if they do call me and it's not an emergency, they're gonna hear it from
They're
me.
gonna hear it.
Yeah,
Yes.
you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying. And the purpose of that is because I just feel like the whole talking experience on the phone shouldn't last more than 5 minutes. It's like, when me personally, if I'm on the phone, anything over 5 minutes, I got the TV on, online, I'm doing a bunch of things, I'm listening to you, I hear your kids in the background, although it's just a big mess, right? But that doesn't mean I don't like to talk,
Right.
because when I get in person with someone and have a meaningful discussion, because a lot of phone calls are just bullshit discussions, you know what I'm saying? But in my opinion, some people may
Uh-huh.
tweak their face up about it. That's okay. But for me, to have a meaningful discussion is to have a discussion in person, to have
Got it.
that connection. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Anything other than that, we could just text. Everybody knows the rules when it comes to my
And
home.
when you break the rules, you are told
There's consequences. There's
what
consequences.
what
You're gonna
you
hear it.
did wrong, what the consequence. Oh
Yeah.
yes, it is very
And
clearly
everybody
outlined.
understands that now. Like, in the beginning, people were like, I don't know if you ever see like the Facebook posts. I think some people still do it. The old school people where they're like, you know what? I'm done with this social media thing. And then they're pretty much announcing that they're shutting down their Facebook or whatever. And then they'd be like, if anybody needs me, I guess you're just gonna have to reach out the old fashioned way. And
Mm-hmm.
then like 3 weeks later, they're back on Facebook because
Social
you
media.
ain't forcing nobody to call you or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So like people that I over the years know my strictly no
Yeah.
call only text
No, totally.
policy kind of conform to that, at least with me.
Yeah.
And they, they don't slip up, and they don't violate. And I really appreciate all of you guys for that. I love you. I love you. I love you.
To go back to the conversation about the therapist, I also was in therapy in the past. Right after my divorce, I started to suffer anxiety attacks and insomnia. And so I started therapy at that time. Before that, though, I had gone to therapy back when I was in college. But that was the more recent and the more like the more like there were symptoms of depression and anxiety and whatnot.
Right,
So
right.
I had gone back to therapy. I did it for about a year. In 2018 I went back again for a short period of time, and then I did that for about 6 months. This time around, what was different, and this time around I think I started about a year ago, was just that overall I was in a very good place. There was nothing major going on. I mean, I had lost my dad to COVID, and that was very sudden,
Right.
obviously. And, and then we were in a pandemic, and so there was a lot going on, but I was coping very well. I was actually very proud of myself in terms of how I was coping. Um, and I've always been of the mindset that part of the reason why therapy has a stigma attached to it is because everybody thinks that, it's only, oh, well, if you're crazy,
Right.
or if you're, crazy people go to therapy. But part of how we're going to elevate mental health to the same level as physical health, as having to get a hernia treated or diabetes maintenance, right, is by removing the stigma. And the way that we can do that is stop going to therapy when things are bad.
Yes.
Stop going to
Excellent point.
therapy when shit hits the fan.
Excellent point.
Start going to therapy just to go, to form a relationship with your therapist, and so that they know what your status quo is, so to speak, so that when you are having that bad day and you do have that sit down, they're going to pick up on it. They're going to know, because they know. They're like, wait, something's off here. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? You're not talking the way you normally do. You're not thinking the way
Oh my
and
God, you sound just like a therapist. That's
I,
exactly, yeah,
well,
that's exactly how it goes. That's
but
exactly, yeah.
that's and
They'll be
so
like, wait, wait,
it's funny.
back up for a minute.
Go ahead.
Like what you just said, that when
Oh
you say
yeah.
something, they'll be like, wait, wait,
Yes.
wait, no, no, back up
Yeah.
for a minute.
That, wait.
Yeah.
You just said
Hmm.
yes. No, absolutely. So um the just this week I was thinking about, I've been seeing this therapist for a couple weeks now. And I mean, in the beginning, as we were forming the relationship, some things came up because, also full disclosure, I had been in therapy before and she needed to know where I was coming from and what are some of the experiences that molded me and brought me to where I am now. But overall, things are good. And I said, I'm just in therapy right now because things are good. I don't think that I should have to wait until I can't sleep or I'm suffering anxiety attacks to come see
Right.
you. So this is a proactive approach to therapy rather than a reactive. It's a preventative measure. And so she got that. But at the same time, this week, I was like, oh, come on, man, I gotta, like I'm paying, how much am I paying? I gotta make her work.
Yeah.
So actually this week,
No holding back.
no, totally. And I know that I have some things that I want to work on. And so I'm bringing that to the table this week. And I'm going to be like, you know what? No, everything's great. Everything's still great. There's this thing that I do. You know what I mean? Like, and I just need somebody to kind of walk me through, like, why do I do that? Like, and because having the comfort level too with somebody to be able to do that. Like,
Yeah.
that's just so, yeah. So self-care, go sit with a therapist, man. It's
Yeah,
not
for
easy
sure.
in the beginning, but
You said a lot of great things just now, and you just reminded me another good point that I just want to build on a little bit of what you said. the fact of already being in therapy before, kind of knowing what the expectations are, at least what to expect, because oftentimes, especially when we wait until we are in a moment of distress, and then if and that's a big if we get to the point where we get to sit in a chair across from someone, or on the phone or virtually or whatever, and be in the position to start a therapy process, in the beginning, there's the whole trust thing. There's a whole need to build rapport. Some of us have trust issues. We come with a lot of baggage, and it takes time to really start to tap into what's really going on, because
Yes.
the therapist has to sort through all the baggage in order to start getting inside.
Right.
And what worked well for me when I first went to a therapist was that I had been in treatment. So I knew about counseling sessions. I knew the importance of getting naked. That's where I got the term from,
Right.
getting naked, and it doesn't mean that, I just do that with any old body, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But once I'm there, I'm at the point, I know the importance. I know how much time is saved, and how quicker things could start getting better if I start just getting into the exact nature of what's going on,
Right.
instead of playing these games, and having the therapist make them work. Yeah, because they will work for it.
Yeah.
But, it all depends on me. If I really want to get better and I really want to get my money's worth out of it,
Mm-hmm.
then, especially someone that's been in therapy before. So then I can just cut through the bullshit and, say, this is what's really going on. Like, you know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like, I'm here because I'm here for my maintenance. Like, nothing's really going on yet, but just in case, I want to have something in place. I want to have some healthy coping exercises in place, because shit will pop off. Shit is gonna happen. We already know this. We've been around for a little while, so to have those things in place, and have that support in place, whether it just be the therapist or something like we're doing now, because we mentioned in the beginning that this starting to feel like there was like a therapeutic benefit to you and I doing this WWIU show and connecting. So yeah, it really does help once you've already been through the process and you've been through that experience before, where you could just really just sit down again. And if you still can get with the same therapist, it's even great, because it's
Yeah.
just a matter of sitting down and be like, okay, so where did we leave off last time,
Right. Right.
and get
Absolutely.
right to it. So yeah, I just
So
wanted
we've
to
been
say that.
talking a lot about self-care, which is important. That's first and foremost for me, and you know this.
Mm.
Um, but what's happening in the world right now?
Ooh, I was
I don't
feeling
even
so
know. How
good.
long have we been talking? Like this might be the end of the show.
I'm yeah, you know what I'm not what I was prepared to get into. I'm gonna hold off on that, because
Okay.
I'm feeling good from the conversation so far.
Absolutely.
And if I was gonna get into that, it would probably be something I could have got into first, and then we could do the self-care portion
I know,
as
right?
the
Just to kind of
yeah as
end
the
off on a
ending on
good note.
a brighter note. But what I will say is, like, just to pretty much summarize, and I started off with it, like I said, welcome to fascist USA. Like,
Yes.
there's
Yes.
a lot of shit going on that I expected. I
Mm-hmm.
expected, like, the whole Roe v. Wade thing. That was no surprise, and I'm talking about beyond the leak of the Supreme Court decision weeks prior to that. Like, I'm
Right.
like Republicans have been working on this since the 70s,
Exactly.
or
Yes.
conservatives, and Trump got it when Trump was one of the debates with Hillary. That conversation came up, and he said that he's going to put Supreme Court justices
Yeah.
in that will, so but you know what is amazing to me, that I've seen Republicans or Trump supporters devastated behind this whole Roe v. Wade thing. And it's like, where the fuck have you been? Like, what I just said, like, they told us. This is
Yep.
no secret. This is not something that they're just, you know what I'm saying? And I'm looking at these people like, are you serious?
Mm-hmm.
Like, have you just put certain shit out of your mind in
Mm-hmm.
order to be able to live with your decisions?
Right.
You
Right.
know?
Yeah. And
So
they're like ostriches with their head in the sand.
that's what I was going to talk about, actually. Like,
you know, you know how I am. And I haven't been very vocal about all of what happened with Roe versus Wade, because I cannot become overcome with the rage. I can't allow myself to get into that space for my own well-being. Um, what immediately um, came to me was that human beings have been around for centuries prior to this country being what it is, right? And for centuries, women have figured out ways
Yeah.
to take care of ourselves. Nature even takes care of itself. So, what we're going to see is a boom in the holistic healthcare industry, especially for women. And I say that as a means to encourage people. If you are in any way, shape, or form concerned, I don't believe that anybody in the state of New Jersey has any, call for concern, or even
No,
in the state of New York,
definitely
or,
not. The
like,
tri-state area
yeah,
and many
we're
other states,
good.
California
What
definitely,
we
like,
will see is an influx. What we're going to see is a boom in the healthcare industry, women's health services. And then we're going to see an influx of people seeking services, especially in a place like, where we're closer to borders or what have you.
mhm.
But just overall, I think that we're going to see a boom in holistic healthcare approaches. I'm just putting it out there in case nobody has thought about that. If you know someone, just put that out there, that there are a lot of people who may not necessarily be MDs or DOs or RNs or what have you, start to tap into now a lot of the holistic healthcare approaches that exist, because there's already a lot of talk in that community of being at the ready, even if it means having to travel into other states to be able to administer things. And I don't know how crazy things are going to get in these states, but let's just be aware and let's just be educated so that we
Yeah.
can move in ways that keep us all healthy and safe. Because yeah, this government has never been one to help the
No,
people,
no.
even like
But not we. I mean,
welfare and what.
we at the point where the government can't is not even one to even protect people. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's one thing to
At all.
do stuff for people, but it's another thing to protect people from the rights that they already have. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Which is, and you talked about, the importance of educating ourselves. Like, this is just more. This is more than just whether you are, anti-abortion or pro-choice or whatever. Like this, they're first of all, like, the decision is left up to the state. So like you just mentioned, like Jersey, New York, tri-state area, blue states, some, we're good. Some of the states even, put past legislation where, making sure that, women get the necessary treatment that they need, but what is it's very, very devious about this whole process and this whole issue is that there are other states that are not, not just banning abortion, making abortion legal after, whatever weeks process or whatever it is according to the state, but they have like these vigilante laws now. Like,
Yes.
so they have people like they're allowing people to file civil suits and shit against people that they know that are traveling across state lines in order to go to a state where they can get the necessary medical attention that they
Right.
need. You know what I'm saying? And we already know what the vigilanteism looks like. You know what I'm saying? So, we can see, and and we're not just talking about just the regular old type of vigilantes. We're also talking about this social media age where everybody is just looking to make a spectacle, you know what I'm saying? And they're looking
Yep.
for their come up, and they're looking, they're looking for the grift. You know what I'm saying? So it targets people more than it usually would. You know what I'm saying? The people don't have the privacy that they would expect or whatever. Like, okay, your state doesn't allow abortion, fine, but that shouldn't affect someone from getting in their car, getting on a Greyhound or whatever it is,
Right.
and going to a state that's going to meet their needs. You know what
Right.
I'm saying? And the Clarence Thomas, Supreme Court Justice, in his ruling, he already mentioned like stuff like
What's
contraceptives,
next?
gay marriage, that's on the
What's
table.
next? Oh
That's on the
my God.
table. And
I
he
can't.
stopped short
I can't.
of interracial marriage because he
There
got
was a
himself a white woman at home.
there was a congressman that already posted
Yes,
on Twitter,
before
Brown and Ferguson,
Brown versus Board. Yeah,
Brown versus Board and
yeah.
Plessy versus Ferguson. And I'm like,
I know,
I
I know what you
I
meant about that one. I think that matter of fact, that was a tweet in response to Barack Obama, and he was saying that to make a point, if I'm not mistaken. But there was another Republican state lawmaker that did mention, and I don't know the case name for the that made interracial marriage legal, but he mentioned it. He put it out there. And
right.
what he said was that that's a matter that should be left up to the states. That's
Wasn't
the
that
language.
Loving versus West Virginia?
Something
Was it?
like that.
Yeah,
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 was the interracial one that they made a movie about
yeah.
it. But
So
it's that too is, I mean, I have an aunt who married her partner. They've been together for 25 years. My nieces and nephews don't know what life is without, these two women, together in a relationship, and they were very active parts of our lives. And I was having dinner with one of them the other day, and she was like telling me these things. Like, she's like, your aunt and I were talking, and we're gonna have to do, our will, and God forbid anything should happen, and we're gonna need you guys' support. And then I'm asking her, I'm like, well, how about her family? Like, are we gonna, have any resistance from her family? She's like, no, we already talked. And I'm like, I'm having this conversation really about, you know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Like, we're literally going to have to be the advocates for these women who have spent, the last 25 plus years of their lives together, and they're older now, and there's a possibility of, declining health and having to make decisions. And is that right going to be taken away from the spouse?
it
Because
is so fucking
it
unnecessary
is,
for
it
people to
is.
have to go through that, and that's what makes it more concerning and scary, because we've been so conditioned to be having certain rights where it's
Yes.
something that we kind of take for granted. We would think, oh, that will never happen, this will never happen, and these people are just crazy, and there's only a small amount of them, and there's more of us,
And it's
and look
happening.
where we are.
And it's happening.
Yeah,
So, okay, I think we should stop right there
I
because
do, but I want to. I on that last topic, I do have
good.
something on a brighter note, and
Okay.
I don't know if you heard about it, about the woman in Texas that was pulled over um in what do they call it, the I forgot the technical term, but the
Mhm.
carpool lane. So apparently in
Okay.
Texas, first of all, this is an issue in itself. They had a checkpoint set up, the police, to check to see if people were in compliance with the rules of the carpool lane, which means you need two or more passengers. High
Yes.
occupancy vehicle, that's what it's called.
Yes. The
High
HOV
occupancy,
lane.
yeah, HOV lane. So they pull over this woman, and the whole, why I pulled you over, blah, blah, she was in the high occupancy vehicle lane, aka carpool lane. And she said, yeah, I don't see the problem. And the cop looking in the car, and he doesn't see anybody, and he's like, you have anybody else in here? And she says, yeah. And she's like 30 weeks pregnant.
I
And
love
I saw
it.
an interview with her. She does that. She points at her stomach like, yeah, hello. And the,
Yeah.
the cop told her that doesn't count. And she was
Oh,
like, I don't
really?
want to get all political with you, but I don't know if you've been paying attention to what's going on. But
I
this is a
love it.
person, right? So they gave her a ticket. Like, that didn't get her out of the ticket. The ticket is $250 something for that
I
ticket.
would fight it.
No,
I
no,
would
that's the
fight it.
whole thing, because that was her plan. Like, she's been on news stations, and she's, and I'm first of all, fucking great. That shit was brilliant. Like, I watched
Yes.
that interview with her. That's that little snapshot like several times, and just like the way she just like, yeah, hello,
Mm-hmm.
and she's absolutely right according to the law. If that is a person, you know what I'm
Exactly.
saying? So what now, we don't know how far like she'll get with that. They may just try to just like, they may throw it out and just think that she's just gonna go away and be quiet, which she may, but there's other like legal scholars paying attention to this. Like,
She has established a precedence if
yes,
she pursues the
yes. Or she get she
that they
yeah, she
do
put
away.
she put and there's
She's
already.
establishing a precedent. Yes.
So
Mm-hmm.
that's going to be the interesting thing about this, the legal
Mm-hmm.
battles, because there's going to be a lot of situations like that where on one end you're saying that that's a person in there and you can't murder that person. But because there was something on TikTok where they were saying, if this is a person, child support should start at the moment, right? Child support, they
Absolutely.
mentioned being count on the census,
Yeah.
like just a whole, like opened
Yeah.
up a whole can of worms.
If I'm gonna go on public assistance, it should
Yes.
start as soon as,
Food
oh,
stamps
absolutely.
situation.
All of
Yeah.
it, all of
For
it.
two, like,
And we know that Republicans are infamous because that's another meme that's all over the place, right? Is that they're fighting for the fetus, in one shot, and then in the next shot is the woman with the child, and they're like, stop being lazy, get a
yeah,
job. I'm
yeah.
not going to support, so
The
you
mental
can't pick and
gymnastics that
choose.
they fucking
Yes,
play.
you can't pick and choose
Yeah.
when you want to declare something a life and take care of it. Either you're going to be a champion for that life from beginning to end, or you're going to sit down and shut the fuck up.
Exactly. That's why I don't refer to them as pro-life. I refer to them as anti-abortion, because once that baby's born, and there's been plenty, like the George Carlin skits from from 10, 15 years ago, like he was on point, like, and everybody knows this. This is not even a secret. You don't even have to be into politics to know that once that person is born, even as a child growing up, whether it be a toddler, a teenager, whatever, they don't give a fuck about the well-being. They don't give a fuck if that child's going to be poor.
Yep.
They don't give a fuck if that child's going to have medical complications. They're going to need health care, and they don't give a shit about that. As a matter of fact, a lot of them states that are banning abortion are also blocking Medicaid expansion. You know what I'm saying? So, like, don't give me the pro-life shit. Like, somebody in my inbox, a friend of mine that I know that tries to get into discussions with me, try to tell me that they agree that they're pro-life or whatever. And I was like, I'm so happy to know that you don't agree with the death penalty. And they were like, what? Wait a minute. I didn't say that. And I mean, like, you said you were pro-life.
Pro-life, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Her thing was, yeah, but in certain, and I get that argument too, like in certain situations where, when it involves murdering someone or whatever. And it was like, yeah, and I would probably feel like that too if someone came and hurt and took someone I love away from me. But then I have to look at the bigger picture, that this country has a history of wrongfully convicting people. So unless your fucking system is 99% perfect with convictions, we cannot have a death penalty. And that's where I stand on that shit.
And on that note,
wait, we got our shirts. We didn't.
Oh, that's right.
You can't really see them. So
I know.
You explained what bomba was. So
go ahead, read my love language is bomba. So
and mine,
that's my t-shirt,
is not today,
as quoted by Nat Turner.
Nat
in
Turner,
1831.
1831, because that's become a part of our what I want to call it. It's part of our shtick, is it, or just part of our
spiel?
Yeah, it's part of our thing to have our little political shirts now or whatever. So you won't never see
our
us
statement t-shirts.
Yeah, we're making a statement, a non-verbal statement, while we're making verbal statements. That's our thing. All right. So going forward, we're
gonna keep doing this. We were on a bit of a hiatus because life got in the way and there were scheduling issues. And
I was worried for a minute. I was like, she's
and you had self-care going on.
Yeah, I have stuff. I still have stuff. It's just the point from now on is just how to work this show into the stuff.
Well, but I mean, in terms of the surgery and the healing and and that was several weeks, and
vacation,
we weren't even thinking about.
I didn't talk about that.
So I had a vacation too.
Of course you did. Every time we have a show, like you're like, I just came back from vacation.
A little getaway.
Yeah, I saw you.
Anyway.
I saw your post.
But it was good to get back to this. We're gonna continue. We have not gone anywhere. We're on a mission, as stated in the beginning of every recording.
I also wanted to announce that Facebook is no longer using the podcast on their platform anymore. I think they stopped it last month. So if you happen to listen to the show through the podcast on Facebook, please check the link tree with the other podcast platforms such as Google, Spotify, Apple. Also, I want to announce a couple of new platforms I put us on. We are now on Amazon Music. We are on, oh my God, I can't even remember. We're on like 3 more. Amazon Music for sure.
Okay.
The TuneIn app. We are also on, along with, so Facebook you won't be able to, unless we share it on the page or whatever, they won't be Yeah, they won't be putting out the podcast anymore, which kind of sucks, but that's Facebook. All right. So again, I am Scott.
I am Michi.
Thank you
Until
for
next
hanging with
time.
us. Peace.
Peace.